What new, I should say, not new, what new offensive coordinator just compared an older NFC running back to Bijan Robinson? How do you handle Kyle Pitts, knowing that he may or may not be an Atlanta Falcon in FFPC drafts this year? And what is the new destination for one former Pro Bowl tight end that still is not past his prime that could pay off huge dividends in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournaments in 2026? Plus, we have a great show. We have Steve Georgalos, Steve G from the Fantasy Sopranos, the reigning champion of the 2025 FFPC High Society draft, where he won a cool 50 grand. And that really pales in comparison to all the money that he won in the Big Gorilla, the FFPC Main Event, and plenty of other FFPC ancillary leagues, including but not limited to the Playoff Challenge as well. He joins us tonight. Ferrell Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than me, the lesser.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man, nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics and Ferrelliacs. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. It is presented by MyFFPC.com. That is MyFFPC.com. I am, of course, your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Ferrell Elliott. I'll bring him on in a second. Coming up on tonight's show, we're not only going to break down the things I talked about at the top of the program, we're also going to be talking about how high is too high for Colston Loveland in Big Gorilla drafts this year. Who's the number 2 wide receiver in Denver that you need to know for Baby Gorilla drafts? And, of course, Steve Georgalos is going to join us, the champion of the 2025 FFPC High Society League. He is going to pop by to give his thoughts on not only Brian Thomas Jr., Parker Washington in Jacksonville, Justin Jefferson in Minnesota, Ricky Pearsall in San Francisco, but he'll talk about what it was like this past weekend at Caesars in Southern Indiana, drafting in the KFFSC Super Sweet 16 with yours truly and so many others. That is coming up in about 12 minutes here on the program. Before we get to that, I want to let everybody, each and every one of you know that if you want to connect with us on X, the show is at HSFF Hour. At Eric Balkman is where I am on there. And, of course, check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com. That's KFFSC.com. Post on our Facebook page, facebook.com/HSFF Hour. You can email the show as well, highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. So if you have any questions for me, for Ferrell, for both of us, for Steve, for all three of us, now is the time to send them. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions and X posts and emails coming up in our fantasy feedback segment later on in the show. Thanks to our audio engineer and my best friend Bryce and our producer and mutual friend Rob. Want to bring in the greatest Super Bowl host in recent memory, better than Santa Clara, California, better than the San Francisco 49ers, a guy that put on a fantastic show at Caesars Southern Indiana this past weekend for the Super Sunday Sweet 16 drafts that went all across Saturday, pretty much all of Sunday, and then a great viewing party for plenty of high-stakes players, yours truly included, over at Caesars. He is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. His name, Ferrell Elliott, and I bring him on right now. Ferrell, good evening, sir.
Oh, Balky, what an introduction. We did have a good time, didn't we?
We did. It was awesome.
You know, this is our 5th season of Super Sunday, and I think it was our best. Having you there, Stephen G. will tell us what he made of it. You know, there were 5 or 6 guys, including you, that drafted at every draft that we had. And we'll look to expand that where even you can't use your superpowers to draft in every draft that we have. But it was a good time. It was a great time for me to personally see everyone and be with everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, I always say this too. Like, one of the things that's great about the FFPC in Las Vegas, and one of the great things about the KFFSC in August, is, a lot of these guys you compete against, you compete with throughout the season, but you really only see them once or twice a year. And this was kind of a nice respite because, the distance between August in Kentucky and September in Las Vegas, it's not that long. It's like 2 weeks. So basically it's really one time, but now to get, catch up on everybody, hang out with them, find out what's going on with them here in February. That was really cool. And something I kind of regretted not doing in previous years. I talked to my son, who was always the catalyst for me not being there in previous years. And the fact that he got through it this year, Ferrell, I think we're going to get through it in future years as well. So
well, he's growing up, Balky, and you've taught him well.
Well, and he's going to come one of these years. Once he gets old enough, he's going to come and hang out and draft some teams as well. So I
look at that. Derek Cadota's checking in with us tonight. Now there's a blast from the past.
There you go. Although Eric Balkman, longtime buddies. He is indeed. Derek chiming in on YouTube tonight as he's taking us in. No, Facebook. I take that back. He's watching us on Facebook tonight. So Derek, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Ferrell, I want to get into some Super Bowl fantasy football news here as we're getting into. I always say it's not. I think Cecil Lammy from Football Guys always says this. It's not the off season; it's the non-playing season, which is basically what we're in right now. Tom Smith also checking in. Just got done with a Big Gorilla. I wonder if it was the Big Gorilla I just commissioned. That could be.
It was bulky.
It was. Okay, so there you go, Tom. Tell us about your team, how much you like it or hate it. Let's get into your Raiders, Ferrell, to get things off tonight. Field Yates, who covers the NFL for ESPN, believes that Fernando Mendoza is actually ideal for Clint Kubiak's offensive system. Clint Kubiak was introduced as the new Raiders head coach shortly after the Super Bowl, and it's all but a foregone conclusion that Mendoza will go to the Raiders with the first overall pick in the draft. Field Yates says that he has elite accuracy and overall arm talent to throw to all levels of the field during his last season with the Hoosiers. And by the way, led the Hoosiers to an undefeated season, I believe the first 16-0 team ever in college football history. And you would imagine that after Clint Kubiak turned Sam Darnold into a really good quarterback to a Super Bowl winning quarterback, that Mendoza might take another leap forward. Quote, Mendoza brings a strong frame and in-pocket mobility with enough creativity to handle duress out of structure. That's what Field Yates from ESPN said. Quote, and his quick processing skills point to a successful starting NFL quarterback. Now, I am not going, yes, Field could be right with a lot of this stuff here. But, Ferrell, I think the biggest thing to focus in on is the fact that the Raiders are going to have a lot of cash and a lot of draft capital to invest in that offensive line, in addition to picking up Mendoza, which should be a significant upgrade over Geno Smith. This should be wheels up for Ashton Genty, for Brock Bowers. We know that our guest tonight was drafting Ashton Genty fairly high in most of his Kentucky drafts this past weekend. And I think that when we look at where these Raiders are going now, Mendoza, Bowers, Genty, I think it is not a stretch to say that if you want to wait to draft until August, which I think is a mistake, you're going to be paying a bigger premium for these players. If you're drafting now, get these Raiders now, because I think a lot of them, even though they're already going high, they're going to be even going higher, believe it or not.
Yes, Balky, you're exactly right. And I watched Field Yates, who he could hardly quit talking about Mendoza on NFL Live. Boy, he was, they had to go to a commercial. There were some production values involved just in getting him off the microphone. And we could do the same thing. And at the Super Sunday Sweet 16 drafts, the two Raiders off the board before the 24th pick, almost in every draft, if not every draft. And you would think accurate, with Genty and Bowers, and you would think the accuracy of the passing game makes Genty look good. I also think it does some things for Beck. And when you consider the downs and distance that would be more valuable to Genty, you begin to think that Bowers is a big contributor of that, especially between the 20s. Now, the trick is, as you prepare for your big gorilla and draft multiple players in the best ball format, you're going to have to figure out which is the next best raider to get there. And I think I think over time we'll answer those questions. But yes, Mendoza, who you could compare him to a lot of quarterbacks, but Darnold is certainly one you could compare him to. So I think it's a great landing spot. Spytek at general manager, and along with Brady and whoever else is stirring the pot out there, I think they found him a winner.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And, even though, and like we saw where Mendoza was being drafted, sometimes not drafted at the KFFSC Super Sunday drafts, sometimes not drafted at all, but significantly higher in the drafts that he was selected in than Geno Smith was last year. And a younger guy, a pedigreed guy, the number 1 overall pick. You're going to love drafting Mendoza in Superflex leagues this year. And certainly with how high FFPC and KFFSC players are treating Mendoza, we know that Bowers and Genty are going to be collateral, whatever the opposite of collateral damage is, collateral production. A rising tide raises all ships.
Yes, sir, it does.
Now, I thought this was interesting, Ferrell, and I'd bring it up with you here. Zach Robinson, the new offensive coordinator for Tampa, who spent the last couple of years in Atlanta coaching Bijan Robinson, said he sees Bucky Irving in, quote, a very similar light to Bijan Robinson there with what he can do in the passing game. Quote from Zach Robinson here. There's not a run concept that he can't run, which is great. Now, if we look back to Irving this past season, obviously he had the injury. When the Buccaneers got close to the end zone, he was often taken off the field. But he is entering 2026 seemingly with a blessing from his new offensive coordinator who believes in him. And don't forget, Rachaad White, a free agent, not expected to come back to the team. This could be massive for Bucky Irving this year. Quite frankly, Ferrell, a little disappointed that I didn't land him in more leagues this past weekend. This could be wheels up for Irving. How do you see this situation for Bucky with the Buccaneers?
You've always been a big Bucky Irving guy, and I was surprised that you did not draft him, and that we did not hear Bucky Irving's name coming out of your mouth more frequently during the weekend. Now, every player, especially when you start this early, they can thrive and blossom when they begin to have the feel that the organization, the head coach, the OC, that everybody is getting behind them and everybody believes in them. And those are very, very big words. There's fewer there's fewer players in Atlanta than Zach Robinson could compare. That would make a player feel better than being compared to Bijan Robinson. So it's a wonderful thing, I believe.
It is a wonderful thing, and I think the other thing to understand in regards to this is the price you're paying for Bucky Irving, which is not an extensive amount. No. Especially when you consider, he's being compared to Bijan Robinson, who's the 101 in drafts this year.
And he's always been a steal, Bucky, and you've always stolen him from us. You've always
Bucky Irving, Ferrell, not even being drafted as a top 12 running back right now in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. Bucky Irving, running back 13 at the 306, right behind Josh Jacobs, right ahead of Breece Hall. That data courtesy to you of fantasymojo.com, at FantasyMojo on X. Darren Armani, the webmaster, the godfather of the Pros vs. Joes Championship. Anytime we cite ADP data, stacking data, blind bid data, it's all courtesy to his website. If you play in the FFPC, strongly encourage you to get a subscription to fantasymojo.com. The Athletic's Josh Kendall, who covers the Atlanta Falcons for that publication, believes that franchise tagging Kyle Pitts makes the most sense for Atlanta this year. Kendall said that Pitts is likely to be in Atlanta either way, whether they franchise him, whether they don't franchise him. But with the new people in charge in Atlanta, Kevin Stefanski not really commenting on him at all, it would be interesting to see what he could do on a prove-it tag in front of these eyes in 2026, these new eyes. It's not a massive price that you need to be paying for the franchise tag for tight ends. And Pitts' agent is probably, according to Kendall, who is reporting on this, is probably going to ask for at least the tag, which is a little over $16 million in the average annual value in his contract. Now, here's the thing I want to bring up with Pitts. If we look at where he's being drafted right now, Ferrell, I think there's a little trepidation for FFPC players. He, despite finishing as the tight end 2 last year, is being drafted as tight end 7 at the 602 in this tight end premium format in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. Kyle Pitts going behind Warren, Fannin, and Kraft. He is going ahead of Laporta, Gadsden, and Ferguson. Ferrell, what do you make of the tight end 7 value at the 602? Given how this guy finished last year and knowing, I mean, here's how I look at it. Either he's going to be back with the team he had the tight end 2 season with, or he's going to be with a team that is going to be paying him mucho dinero to do what he did last year. I think tight end 7 for Kyle Pitts, a really, really good spot for FFPC players right now.
It is, but it may be likely to stay at 7. You list the players in front of him again, and let's talk about just who he could move in front of. And it's hard to break into that group. And there's some good players directly behind him. So I think I was looking at it, and this weekend I was surprised to hear him coming off the board as late as he did, and if we go to our champion, Mr. Rob Sorrow, is it, from the FFPC, and his nephew, those guys had Pitts and never used him this year. Their damn team was so good until the very end, so there's quite a steal in the draft, and I think he might stay a steal.
I think that Pitts is the type of player that is going to bring a lot of nervousness, a lot of people that maybe even profited from having Pitts on their team last year, right? Mm-hmm. It's still going to be a difficult click for him this year. And quite frankly, I think I drafted him once this past weekend. I wish it would have been more, because I do believe he's going to return definitely in tight end premium and non-tight end premium leagues on significant draft value this year. So that's my guess of what happens with Kyle Pitts this year. One more thing before we get to our guest tonight. David Njoku announced on Instagram that he is not coming back to the Cleveland Browns this season. Now, if you remember at the trade deadline last year, he was all about Cleveland, despite Harold Fannin really taking over the tight end position for him. He was all about the Browns and coming back to the Browns. And now apparently something has changed, at least to Njoku. I quite frankly was always surprised when he was saying he was coming back to Cleveland. I was a Pro Bowl tight end 2 years ago. His skill set can be utilized by another team in the NFL to perhaps an 80, 90, or 100 target season. This is the first year of his career that he won't be a member of the Browns. They were the original team that drafted him 9 years ago, back in 2017. He is going to be 30 years old this coming year. He lost playing time, obviously, this past year to Harold Fannin Jr. And perhaps after the season ended, he kind of saw where things were going with Cleveland, and that it wasn't him as the future tight end for the Browns. It was going to be Harold Fannin. Now, Ferrell, perhaps I have my Njoku colored glasses on right now, but the fact that this dude is going as tight end 24 in the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament right now at the 1401 behind Theo Johnson, Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, TJ Hawkinson, and then right ahead of AJ Barner, Terrence Ferguson, and Mason Taylor. To me, this is another screaming value, a player that if you draft McBride or Bowers or Loveland or somebody like that early and you still want to get a second tight end here, you can do that. He could certainly be a third tight end for certain teams as well. Right. I look at this from the situation of if a team does sign him to a significant money contract, which I could see happening, given that this isn't the greatest rookie class for tight ends this year. Njoku could look at flirting with a top 15, perhaps even a top 12 season, all aboard the Njoku train for one Eric Balkman this year at the 1401 pick.
I agree with you, Balky. And there's a lot of nice landing places for him, that we could look at. And I had to go back and check the numbers. When you said he's 30 years old and 9 years, you mean we've been we've talked about Pitts never delivering on potential. We've been waiting 9 years, and we've had a lot of flashes from this player. I've never I don't think I've seen a player at the tight end position that could better use a change of venue than this player. And I'm all in on him out of Cleveland, and he's been a good company man for them long enough, and he deserves an opportunity to go somewhere else. And yes, they've drafted well, and they have Fannin Jr., who's a fantastic player, and it's a perfect time to move on.
It is, and I think this could benefit both parties, especially with Njoku. Now, we'll see what happens, right? I mean, he could very easily, go to a place where he is not the number one, maybe a similar place to where he was in Cleveland right now, where he was in Cleveland just recently with Harold Fannin. But I think the juice is worth the squeeze. The risk is worth the reward. Draft Fannin in the 14th round of your FFPC Best Ball, never too early Best Ball tournaments right now. Okay, let's get on to our guest tonight. We've been keeping him waiting way too long. Ladies and gentlemen, we had this guy on last summer, and since then, he had already won, I think, the better part of double-digit FFPC leagues at that point. He added probably more double digits onto that league title, or onto those league titles this past year in the FFPC, and quite frankly in the KFFSC as well. He came this close to winning the $500,000 in the FFPC World Famous Playoff Challenge, and he did close out a championship in the FFPC High Society draft, a $50,000 league winner there right now. He is a member of the Fantasy Sopranos at x.com/Fantasy Sopranos. Please welcome into the program. Welcome back to the program, Mr. Steve Georgalos. Steve, enjoyed hanging out with you this past weekend at the Super Bowl. Good evening to you.
Good evening, gentlemen.
It's good
So
to see
somebody
you,
was on that Njoku train over the weekend. I'm not going to point any fingers of the guy that was drafting him in the 16th and 17th round.
Yeah, I think
but
I
he's
know
very
this.
close to us. He's very, very close to us. But listen, it was a great weekend, by the way. It was great seeing you guys. We had a lot of fun. I thought the drafts were fun. Everybody, I got to see a lot of people that I didn't know personally. Ferrell, great hospitality. It was a great weekend. You can count me in for next year. I'm all in, buddy.
2027's first registrant, and the second one, Balkman. I'm
Me
writing
and
you guys
Balky,
down right
we're
now.
going to snipe each other all night.
Steve G and Balky coming back in 2027.
Did you feel we sniped each other a whole lot? I didn't think we did.
No, we didn't. We were we had similar ideas, but our builds just came up differently. So it worked out pretty good.
You guys were often sitting far apart.
The first draft the first two drafts,
We're
Steve,
right next to each other. Yeah.
But as the night went on, as the day went on,
we got
you guys separated.
Well, I mean, there was something to the fact because Steve liked a lot of the guys that I liked, and vice versa. It was just easier for us to. But then, Steve, I don't know if you noticed this. You probably did. But like rounds sort of didn't matter anymore as we Saturday afternoon and evening and Sunday. Like then we were just like snaking guys 2 rounds ahead of where they were going on Saturday afternoon, and like that's sort of what happens in these things. Happens in Vegas too.
The first draft, I was able to get guys. If you noticed, I was drafting, like Tesla and McMillan and a few other guys in the 13th, 14th, 16th round. Then that stopped. Yeah. After 1 or 2 drafts, it was all over after that.
Tesla was one of the guys I wished I would have gotten more. And I listen, it's only February. I have a chance to rectify that.
Right.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see how it goes.
You have a chance next Tuesday night, Balky,
yes.
on Fat Tuesday.
I should bring that up too, which we have how many spots still available in that?
I think 1 is sold since we came on air. I think we're down to 3. 3 spots left in a 96-team field where you're playing for a grand prize of $10,000.
That's what we spent this past weekend drafting at Caesars, Southern Indiana. And now out of that 96-team field, there are 3 spots left. You can draft live 9 p.m. Eastern time this coming Tuesday night in the Rocky Blyer division. 3 spots left. I'm in that one. You can come compete there, KFFSC.com.
Steve's in there too.
Steve is in there as well.
Yeah, we're in there.
That's going to be a lot of fun. The one of the things that I think was not fun last year, Steve, drafting against you, and it always seemed like when I was about to draft Theo Johnson, you would grab him a round or two earlier. And you're like, I told you, Balky, I told you I'm going to get him. I told you I'm going to get him this year. and you did. But I noticed this year, the want, the need, the desire for Theo Johnson, while it was still there, not nearly as high in 26 as it was in 25. Why do you feel like you're staying away from Theo Johnson more than targeting him this season, Steve?
Well, I'm gonna say that I'm not out on him. I'm just not as overly looking to grab him. I mean, Harbaugh was a great hire. I mean, wasn't crazy about Matt Nagy, to be honest with you. Callahan, let's see what he's gonna end up doing with Dart. But the main reason why I'm kind of a little standoffish at the time being with Theo Johnson is because, in order to make some kind of assessments, you got to watch football. So I saw that in the last couple of games of the season when they made Theo Johnson inactive, that Cody Bellinger is a really good tight end. Now, he's a free agent, okay? But in the instance that Bellinger does come back, I'm not going to be as high on Theo Johnson as I was last year. It's just a matter of, I think that he's going to lose snaps or share more snaps and routes with Bellinger.
Bellinger's advancement was truncated somewhat because of that eye injury, if I'm remembering that.
2 years ago. He was actually about to kind of like I think I picked him up on waivers in the FFPC.
Yeah, he was,
and then all of a sudden he got the eye injury.
Yeah, and he's a very, very good player. And that's one of the things we don't want in the FFPC is two tight ends on your roster. But man, Steve, that quarterback, you got your quarterback for your New York Giants, and that's one of the most prolific young players in the game. When he takes his Giants to the Super Bowl, we might see a little better passing game than we saw this past week.
We're going to see a better passing game next year, but we also have to taper our expectations on what they want to do with him. So as much as I love Dart, I've been drafting a lot, and he's going in around. I think, where did he go tonight? He went in the 7th round. To me, it's all right spot. There's not value to me in that spot,
especially this early.
Right.
And Jackson Dart, I think, is playing on Ferrell the more attractive offense in New York. There's one other offense in there that has still, to me, remained very offensive.
Let's stay with the New Yorker and talk a little New York football. Let's go over to the Jets, Steve. Garrett Wilson, God, it was awful. 36 catches last year. It was just awful.
Thanks for reminding me of that, as he was one of my most drafted wide receivers. I appreciate the reminder.
Reminding you, and you still won. That's how good you are. You still
Not
won.
enough.
The 51st wide receiver overall, Steve. 51st wide receiver overall. How is he going to bounce back from that, especially with the uncertainty that we're experiencing right now? In these early drafts, with the uncertainty with the Jets, how it's all going to come together. Do you just, based on where you have to take him, there's a lot of good wide receivers there. Are you just going to pass on Garrett Wilson?
Where did he go? Where did he go tonight? I mean, look, I'm a Garrett Wilson truther. I always thought that, because the year prior to this, even without a quarterback, the guy put up numbers. But from what I saw last year, maybe he's not quarterback proof. Maybe this coaching staff isn't, they took out Frank Reich, which is an offensive-minded OC. Okay. I'm hoping that helps the offensive situation, but unless something happens at quarterback, I don't know how in I'm going to be on Garrett Wilson. I've learned from last year that the biggest mistake that I might have made is saying I'm not drafting this person and I'm taking 0 shares. Yeah. I will not do that ever again, because it's not the right, with the way the volume drafting that me and my guys do, it's just not the right move. But I'm going to temper and soft fade him early until I see what's going on. But saying that,
very good strategy.
I really like Mason Taylor where he's going.
Yeah.
So maybe it's going to flip of the tight ends of New York maybe this year. So I do like Mason Taylor a lot. I do like Isaiah Davis a lot. I just think Breece Hall's not going to be there. I like Braylon Allen, but in this type of offense, I feel they're going to be really bad. There's going to be a lot of dump-offs, stuff like that. So, you got to temper expectation on Wilson and try to find value if you're looking at the Jets.
Oh, we are looking at the Jets right now. Garrett Wilson, wide receiver 13 at the 304 in FFPC Big Gorilla drafts so far this season. That's right behind the glut of Olave, Rice, and Collins. It is right ahead of A.J. Brown, Higgins, and McMillan. If we look at Mason Taylor, as Steve was just talking about him in the FFPC Big Gorilla, we can find his ADP sitting at tight end 25 at the 14-12 comfortably behind David Njoku, TJ Hawkinson, and then right ahead of AJ Barner, Jake Tonjes, and Colby Parkinson. Steve, another guy that seemed to find his way onto more than a couple of your rosters this past week was Ricky Pearsall, the wide receiver from San Francisco. Potentially no Juwan Jennings in this offense this coming year as he is a free agent. You could look at potentially George Kittle missing the first part of the season, coming off the torn Achilles, and we all know how important it is to get off to a good start in the FFPC. How big of a beneficiary is Pearsall going to be in this offense, considering the things I just said, as well as the Niners can't focus and give the workload that they did to McCaffrey again this year? Or can they? I don't know. Seems like a lot of things are looking up with Ricky Pearsall in 2026.
But if McCaffrey stays healthy again, obviously they're going to give him the workload because the guy, that was a big miss on me last year. Okay, I was like, I'm not going to draft McCaffrey, and it was a big miss and another lesson learned, but we get on from that. So my opinion of Ricky Pearsall is simple, okay? I believe that he's going to be the Chris Olave of this year's draft. If you remember, Olave last year, who was one of my highest drafted wide receivers, was fluctuating between the 6th and the 8th round, depending on the time of year. Reason why? Injuries, concussions. Everybody was scared. This guy gets another concussion, he's going to be a vegetable. His career's over. So the same thing with Pearsall. Everybody's opinion is that Pearsall is soft. He can't bounce back from these injuries. The PCL kept him out for 10 weeks? I don't know. I can remember off the top of my head. So that kept him out a long time. He's always had soft tissue injuries, hamstrings going into camp. Every camp, all of a sudden, there he pops up with a hamstring injury. I personally feel that this is a year that makes or breaks him. I think that they drafted him high capital. He's a really talented wide receiver, excellent route runner, okay? And I believe that if he stays healthy, which is a big gift, just like we took a swing at Olave, if he stays healthy in the 6th, 7th round, 8th round, where he'll be going, he will be this year's steal of the draft.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Pearsall right now in the Big Gorilla ADP, wide receiver 35. To Steve's point here, this is behind Rome Odunze, who disappointed a lot of fantasy owners this past year. Mike Evans, who is probably coming back this coming year, but we don't know for sure yet. And then Jordan Tyson, who's never played one down of NFL football before in his career. Pearsall can be had in the early 7th round right now, Ferrell.
I'm taking it. I like it.
Let's not forget this guy got shot, so he's not that soft and came back.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know where this soft is coming from, but
he's beat up a little bit. I mean, that offense, we don't know where it's going to run. To be honest with you, I would say that I don't think Kittle plays 75-80% of the season. I don't think he plays. So I like Jake Tonges. I think he's a talented tight end. I think that he's going to fit in serviceably and above that. Okay. I actually took him. He was a write-in in Kentucky. I think I took him a few times. So, I don't mind Pearsall. I think that I'm going to state that this might be the Olave of this year.
Steve, real quick, Ferrell. Steve, what do you make of, like, we saw a couple of people do this past weekend during the Super Bowl drafts at Caesars, pairing Tonjes and Kittle together. Is that a strategy that you would do in the KFFSC or perhaps the Big Gorilla this year? Is get both those Niners tight ends?
So I'm gonna tell you guys, if you take the philosophy of Kittle's gonna miss, let's say, half the season. Could we say that? And I think it's aggressive to say only half, but let's say he's gonna take half the season. Okay, so you have 8 dud weeks of keeping Kittle on your roster. Depending on your roster build, okay, and you have a Fannin on your roster or Tyler Warren. I'm high on Kincaid this year. I think this is going to be another make or break for this guy. I mean, I drafted him a few times over the weekend wherever I could, but I feel that I don't think Kittle's going to come back as strong and as quickly as people might think. You're going to keep Kittle on the bench, take a bench spot. I would just draft, if you're going to draft a tight end earlier, that's going to be a starter or 2 tight ends, because I'm a tight end whore in FFPC. If you're going to draft them, and I would take Tonjes, because if he does for the first 7-8 games, you're getting him. I mean, I don't know where did he go tonight? Kittle went in the 8th round, and I think Tonjes went. Where did Tonjes go? Tonjes went in the 16th, 17th turn. He went. So, why I would prefer to take Tonjes late, bank myself on 1 or 2 better tight ends, and try to build from there.
Yeah. Tonjes is a really improving football player, but he's no Kittle. But for fantasy football purposes, he's the same producer. There's been very few situations like this in fantasy football where you can count on the same fantasy point production. Kittle does so many more things.
Blocking, he's a whole different array, but
ball player.
But Tonjes is a good pass catching tight end. He blocks a little bit. I mean, for what we want him for, he's good.
And Tonjes is, his game have developed where at the 49ers, he should be more like Kittle. I tell you what, if you put Garrett Wilson and Justin Jefferson together last year, you were really hurting, Steve. I hope you didn't.
I didn't take much Justin Jefferson. At least on that fade, I didn't go too bad.
We went into the second part of the first round, and regularly Justin Jefferson's coming off. He was a 7, 8, 9 pick at the wide receiver. Here's a player this past year, 84 catches, 2 touchdowns. He got one in week 1. And then right around Halloween, he got another one versus the Detroits. I remember watching that one. And then he did not find the end zone the rest of the year. He could have that kind of comeback. I've heard Balky say, and Balky, correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but I think I've heard you say that touchdowns are the thing that you cannot predict. And, we've had feast and famine last year with the tight end out of Dallas, Ferguson. Steve, Justin Jefferson's obviously the real thing. He caught 84 passes last year. Does his game become more prolific with scoring, and can we trust him as a first-round fantasy football wide receiver?
Well, depending on how much Jefferson I actually get, because in the second round I like him, I will personally pay for J.J. McCarthy to get like ballet lessons or like do Pilates to kind of soften up his touch. Because he throws that ball 100 miles an hour. He needs to get more touch. Okay.
More touch.
And if you notice the last game of the season, he actually was looking for Justin Jefferson to get him over those yards and all. Look, Justin Jefferson, probably the most talented wide receiver in football. It's him, Chase, Puka. These guys are all guys that that are top level. I think that McCarthy, I'm not dead on McCarthy. I don't know if they're going to get the stones to bring in somebody to compete with him, maybe make this kid want to improve. But I'm going to be honest, if I see Justin Jefferson in the second round and I'm going that route, I'm going to take him every time. I think that Justin Jefferson's a talented wide receiver. He's a second round pick right now around the 1-2 turn, going like 14th, 15th overall. depending on what I'm doing, if he's there, I'm going to snatch him every time.
Yeah, Jefferson, to your point, Steve, 201 in the Big Gorilla here so far this season. Comfortably behind those receivers that you mentioned, as well as Smith and Jigba, Lamb, and St. Brown. He is going ahead of Neighbors, London, and Pickens. One of the receivers that is not going in that neighborhood, or any of the receivers that are going in that neighborhood, none of them wear Cardinals jerseys. And I think it's very, very interesting when we talk about the Cardinals passing game and how to handle it in 2026, because you have Marvin Harrison, who quite frankly has not looked great his first 2 years in the league. And you had Michael Wilson, who never looked great in the league until this past year. And you always wonder, beware the career year, right? When it comes to Wilson. Part of the reason that Wilson was so successful was the injury and then the subsequent benching, I'm putting that in quotes for you audio listeners, Kyler Murray, and the rise of Jacoby Brissett, who is under contract with Arizona this year, but there's no guarantee he is with the team in 2026. The other pepper in the gumbo here is Trey McBride, who is going as the number 1 tight end in FFPC drafts right now. His Big Gorilla ADP stands at 109. How do you handle the Arizona passing game in 2026, Steve, when we saw so much change this past year? We have to figure out what's real and what's not real. How are you figuring in the Arizona passing game and receiving game, quite frankly, in your drafts this season?
So at the end, when you had me on last year, at the end of the show, you asked me what player do I want in every draft, and I said I wanted Trey McBride, because I was the one that everybody kind of went at when I was taking him before Brock Bowers last year. Okay.
Yep.
So, and we also discussed in that little snippet that, maybe Michael Wilson is the breakout this year. Okay. We specifically said that he was the built wide receiver, and that could happen with the Arizona offense. And I wasn't really into Marvin Harrison Jr., but I'm going to go this direction. Okay. I believe that Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson are both firmly in play this year. I'm hoping that Kyler Murray isn't the quarterback, but even if he is, you kind of have to say that Wilson's the cat's out of the bag. You can't bottle that back up. Mm-hmm. He's a beast. Okay. Marvin Harrison Jr. has something to prove this year. Third year could be, breakout year. I'm definitely not against him. I took some of him in Kentucky. I took a lot of Wilson in Kentucky. I balanced it out. And if you noticed, I took Kyler Murray in the 20th round.
Yeah.
I took him a lot of times until you started taking him. And then I couldn't get him anymore.
I took him one time.
All right. One time.
It was after you had taken him in a draft, to be fair to you. Yes.
No, I'm joking. But but the truth is that, I'm upset with Nathaniel Hackett going there. Okay. But I mean, because he's awful. Okay. It's the facts of facts. I remember when what's his name? Sean Payton said it's the worst coaching job he's ever seen. And Aaron Rodgers took 2 hits of peyote and wanted to go kill him. So I mean, listen, I hear that LaFleur, from what I'm hearing, LaFleur and Hackett, they're like family friends. Mm-hmm. And he's not going to call any plays. So he's just going to be there, I guess, in spirit. Okay. Give the guy a job, be somebody that's not going to complain about no calling a play. So I'm counting on LaFleur, who did a really good job with the Rams. I mean, we can't deny that. I mean, right. Look at Puka, look at Devontae, look at Matthew Stafford, MVP. Okay, the way he balanced that backfield, and that's another thing. The Arizona backfield. Where do we go with that?
Yeah.
What do we say with that? Connor's still under contract. He's coming back. Trey Benson. I mean, we didn't see anything out again last year. So it's going to be an offense that's going to flux. I'm hoping that LaFleur could put it together, but Michael Wilson and Marvin Harrison could easily be top 24 wide receivers, easily together.
I think the thing that, if you're drafting right now, and why wouldn't you be, is to draft Wilson and Harrison, because I do believe if we get some kind of clarity here, Steve, that Brissett is going to be the starting quarterback week 1.
They're going to steam up.
The prices on Harrison and Wilson are going to go significantly higher. So now is the time to buy your Arizona Cardinals wide receivers before those prices go up.
Ooh,
Because
I don't think. Well, I'm sorry, Balky. I started talking.
I'm saying that drafting early, a lot of people think I'm nuts. The amount of drafts, early drafting that we do. I personally think, and with some of the guys that I'm drafting with, I think that's a big edge. So I think it's a really big edge because some news can come out on certain players, which I'm going to keep to myself, that'll have players that are going in the 5th and 6th round, going in the 2nd round. So if you're gonna do builds and you're gonna do a lot of teams, I mean, I would jump in these drafts.
To your point, I mean, we had Tommy Heron on last week, and Tommy Heron was the FFPC Big Gorilla Early Rampage champion, which obviously rewards those people that are drafting early to be entered into a separate early Rampage tournament as well as the Big Gorilla. Well, not only did Tommy draft early, I think he drafted that team in like late February, early March. He won the early Rampage. He took 4th overall in the Big Gorilla. So he was only a few points away from cashing that $1 million grand prize in the Big Gorilla. A lot of people say, oh, you got to wait. I think maybe that was true years ago. But now with so much information available to the general public, if you feel like you have any kind of edge, now is the time to swing your sword and draft now because the play will level out as we get to July, August, and September.
My first Big Gorilla team last year was March 1st or March 3rd. And that Big Gorilla team went 12-0 in the regular season and then won out the last 2 weeks. And I drafted that team in, I think, March 3rd or March 1st. I drafted that. And it gave a run to the early Rampage also. But funny part, because I know that me and you have always joked around about taking kickers, I actually took Aubrey in the 12th round or the 13th round of that draft last year.
I knew you would come around, Steve. I know,
Ferrell, you're a big influence on me. In my fantasy career, you're a very big influence on me. People don't understand that.
I knew. Hey, I got a question. What's going to be Mike McDaniel's influence now that he's the OC in the Chargers? I had a friend, and she was looking at the sheet. She asked me, she says, who is that? And I said, well, that's the guy that coached in Miami. And she said, you mean the little guy that always looked like he was going to start crying? And I said, yeah, that's the same guy. Well, you know, he's now running an offense. He's got a great quarterback. He's got receivers. Hey, Balky, just off the top of your head, how many passes Keenan Allen catch last year?
Well, it was higher earlier in the season.
Yeah, just throw a number out.
I don't know. I'll say he ended with 49.
How about 81?
He caught 81 passes last year.
McConkey.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
How many catches?
65.
66. You're on, dog. In other words, who's going to benefit from this? Quentin Johnson got to 51 catches, which is exactly back in the pros versus Joes, where I said I thought he would finish. You know, they've got a lot of talent at the position. What are you going to do with these wide receivers, and how do you see this coach coming in here and making a difference, if at all, in the production of a group that we're very, very proud of, this wide receiver core for the Chargers?
Well, you have to upgrade the entire offense, and it was a pretty decent offense last year. You have to upgrade the entire offense. Mm-hmm. That's, period, the end. McDaniel's coming in. He's going to get aggressive. He's going to scheme up things. I believe you upgrade the entire offense. I believe that Keenan Allen will not be there this year, okay? I personally am not a Ladd McConkey guy. A lot of guys that I respect, that I draft with, that I partner with are Ladd McConkey guys. But again, I still don't see in the 3rd round him being a value this year. I do like Oronde Gadsden. I think that McDaniel has used his tight ends. Okay, he likes using tight ends. All right, I remember, we could call Arthur Smith whatever we want to call him. He did make Jonnu Smith. Okay, was a great year in Miami when Jonnu went there. Okay,
yes, I agree.
And last year, the rapper that came back and played, what's his name? Darren Waller.
Darren Waller.
Yes. If you noticed, he schemed up a lot of stuff on the goal line for him.
Yes, he did.
Because he was getting massive goal line targets and he was catching touchdowns. Okay? Mm-hmm. So my opinion is that the entire offense is an upgrade. I like Oronde Gadsden. I like Trey Harris. I think Trey Harris takes a step up this year. And I think that pass catching offense is going to be good.
Gadsden is going back-to-back with Dalton Kincaid right now in the mid-7th round of FFPC Big Gorilla drafts. Kincaid, the tight end 9, Gadsden, the tight end 10, and then you have to go a little bit further than that to get to tight end 11, which is Jake Ferguson in the late 7th round. So Gadsden makes some sense. Price seems to be right for him right there. And you just heard the reasoning why on this guy potentially outperforming that ADP this season. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars passing offense is fascinating to follow this offseason, as well as how to draft it this year, Steve. So many moving parts, right? Coming off a massive season, first year under Liam Cohen, Trevor Lawrence finally looked like the number 1 overall pick. And part of the reason was he had the good ground game, obviously, with ETN, but he also had a bevy of pass catchers to throw to. You think about Brian Thomas Jr., who had opportunities early on and then just kind of fizzled out. They trade for Jacoby Myers, right? And then they give him the extension. He was a big focus of the passing game. Travis Hunter seemed to be coming into his own before he ends up with the knee injury, I believe, in Europe. And then he shelved the rest of the season. Now we're getting reports that he might be significantly a corner this year rather than a wide receiver. James Gladstone, the GM of Jacksonville, saying, like, look, we have a lot of guys whose contracts are up at corner, so it seems obvious that Hunter will be playing more corner than he did last year. Is that enough to take away his wide receiver capability? Perhaps. So there's a lot of moving pieces here, and I didn't even mention Parker Washington yet, who really came on. Trevor Lawrence being very effusive in his praise for Parker Washington. This question for me sort of bears down to 2 players. Did we see the real, quote-unquote, Brian Thomas Jr. and the real Parker Washington last season, or did we not? And are both of those seasons for these 2 players in 2026 going to look radically different than what they did this past campaign?
Well, I never like to correct you, Balky, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to correct you on Trevor Lawrence. The guy stunk the first half of the season. Terrible. He was my most drafted quarterback. I dropped him everywhere. Then he comes back in the playoffs and he burns me. Okay. So, I mean, I'm not going to complain because I did drop him and pick up Matthew Stafford and the Darnold types, but that is what it is. I was a big Brian Thomas drafter in the first round. I think we all saw that on all the lives that I did on the FFPC YouTube. Okay. And I wish that I took a lot less. Okay. Because being more involved in football and meeting new people and getting more information kind of lets me know different things that I wish I knew when I was drafting this guy religiously. Okay. He's not a great route runner. Okay. So Trevor Lawrence privately, because Trevor Lawrence is a real nice guy, so he's not going to bash Brian Thomas openly. But on the back end, a few people that know Lawrence, he said that the guy is a talented player, but he's just a lot of go routes. And if you notice with Mac Jones a year prior, Mac Jones was the dumping passes to him, go routes. It wasn't much. It was just a lot of volume. Mm-hmm. Now, I saw an interview with Matt Harmon the other day. I don't know if you guys saw it.
Yep.
And he was interviewing Trevor Lawrence. Okay. And if you listen to the whole thing and know what I now know, you hear Trevor Lawrence saying that he wants to, don't give up on Brian Thomas. He could be more than, he mentioned like maybe being more than a go route wide receiver. So I'm hoping that they work together during the year to go there, but he's not a great route runner. Let's see where that goes. Parker Washington, on the other hand, is a great route runner, which is why he got a lot of symmetry with Lawrence. He was getting a lot of looks. He was an end zone target. And I personally think that Jacoby Myers is a jag. I don't think that I think that he's a slot. He's not gonna. I just don't think he's a spectacular player. And I think that they fed him the ball a little bit, but I just don't see him as that guy that's gonna scare me on an offense. Travis Hunter, he didn't get that knee injury. I had in private leagues, I had traded for him that Monday everywhere after he broke out, and I got him cheap. Okay. And Travis Hunter was going to be a focal point of that offense. Now, what they're saying, they could say whatever they want. If Hunter's on the field and he plays offense and he's improves his route running a little bit, the guy's a weapon. So I don't know what to make of it. I do know that Parker Washington and Travis Hunter are two guys that I want pieces of.
I like it. I like it a lot.
The interesting thing here is BTJ, bad route runner, great athlete, bad route runner, right? Travis Hunter, we heard you loud and clear about what this guy was going to be before he got hurt. And then obviously the analysis from Steve Georgalos that he believes Jacoby Myers is a Jag. Well, quite frankly, since he was traded from Las Vegas to Jacksonville, he is a Jag and will be a Jag for the next few years because of the contract he signed with the Jags.
Nicely.
Your point is taken, Steve. We're having some fun with words here for sure. Let's have some fun with rookies, Ferrell.
Oh, 319 of them got the Christmas in February invite to the combine. One of the greatest things a college player can ever get. You know, and 22, 23 of them are running backs. But if you were at Caesars this weekend, all you need is love. That's all that mattered. You know, it's just that was the guy. Steve, I've got some sleepers that I'm going to talk about. If I was if I had a little bit more ego, Balky, I'd say I'm going to release my sleepers. We'll leave that to the pros when they join us this summer. But I've got some sleepers that I'm going to throw out there to you guys. But any other position or running back, Steve, just some rookies that you like. Throw us some that we can look at.
I'll just give you one. I'm not going to catch rookie fever this year. Okay. I'm absolutely not.
It'll be happening in Indianapolis. You go to Indianapolis, you're going to catch rookie fever.
Maybe, but I seriously doubt it. I seriously doubt it in this class. There's a couple of guys that I like, but I'll give you one that's a little deeper that I like. I like Casey Concepcion,
Yes, you should.
Texas A&M. Okay. He's good against man. He's good against zone. He tracks the ball well. He was a little gadgety, but I feel that when he gets into open space, this kid's really good. So depending on landing spot, so that's the beauty of drafting early. If you draft early, last year that was RJ Harvey, which I took a lot of. Okay. And if you draft early and you hit right, it's a big value. I like Concepcion. I think that he's going to eventually be a really good wide receiver. Let's see where the landing spot is. That really counts. But that's the one kid that I see that I'm like, okay, I can kind of draft some of this guy. Besides,
but now what about this running back Love? Because when you say, okay, we got to spend a mid-second round draft pick on him, Balky, do you recall, is that correct? Mid-second round draft pick?
I would say this past weekend he dipped into the early third in a few.
So then you talk about landing spot and you say, hey, this guy's the starting running back in Kansas City. Now, what does that do for you with drafting Love? Do you want to move him up in that situation?
I'm a little biased of drafting rookies,
I'm listening
in the first and second round running backs. I mean, I'm a little biased. I'll have some love. I'm not going to have no love. I'm going to have some love. But, I mean, landing spots key. If Kansas City does draft him, they may also dip their finger with Breece Hall. So it could be two running backs.
Yeah, that would be overkill, wouldn't it? Okay,
so,
you guys want my three distant rookie sleepers that I want?
I would love it. Please. Let me write it down. Let me get a pen here.
Here you go. Get you a pen and write it down. Let's go tight end. Pen. Let's go to tight end. Very important for the FFPC. Let's take a look at Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt.
Very good.
This is going to be your guy you're going to love. This is your Aronde Guess. This is your kind of receiver, pass catching tight end. Let's take a look at another one. Let's look at the kid Hibner from SMU. There's a good pass catching tight end. I want to see where he lands because I want to see if he's backing up a veteran. And if that's the case, that would be a player. And here's a player nobody's talking about. You know, everyone is correct to talk about Tate at wide receiver. I mean, what would our draft be without an Ohio State wide receiver, you know, early in the draft and to be projected to be a fantasy contributor? I'm going to give you a guy nobody will draft, so draft him at the very end if you want, Steve. Ted Hurst, Georgia State, wide receiver.
I know the kid. He's good.
Those are my guys.
Thank you.
I've been hearing a lot of buzz about Ted Hurst for sure. But Hibner is a new one for me. I have not heard.
I'm going to watch tape. Brand new.
Blue collar pass catcher.
Is he a projected day 3, day 2 guy?
Probably.
Okay.
Probably.
All right. Okay. Got it. All right. So that's somebody I'll have to look a little bit closer at. Ferrell, we are up against it, and we still have one final question we need to ask Steve G tonight, my friend.
Oh, I got to get off my rookie list and dig up some more questions.
Yes, you do. One
Steve,
final question is all we need.
I have one quick question for you, Steve. How did Cuz enjoy his trip to
Pistol Pete loved it.
Yeah, well, we
loved it.
We
had a good time. He can't wait for next
year. I got him
year.
in the room enough to talk to him before it was over.
No, he's a good guy.
All right. Steve, you draft so much, but you still have your occasional favorites, and you still have your occasional guy you don't like. Who do you want to get on all your teams, and who is not going to be invited to any parties with the Fantasy Sopranos this year?
I'm going to answer the latter one first.
Okay.
Okay.
That's an easier one.
I will have shares of every player. I'm not going to have a recency bias. Obviously, I'm going to do a lot of volume. Okay. So I'm going to say I'm going to have my lowest end owned players are going to be 3 to 4%. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And one player that I would love to get in every draft in the FFPC. That's a tough question to ask me early. Now, last year I said something, and then when I did it, everybody started saying that I'm nuts. Okay? Nuts. So I'm going to say that if I could get Brock Bowers in every draft, I'm going to take Brock Bowers this year.
Yeah, I'm on with that.
This was the opposite last year, Steve.
This is 2026. 2025 is in the rearview mirror.
Right. So last year you were Team McBride over Bowers. People called you crazy. Now this year you're Team Bowers over McBride, which I think
that Mendoza is going to use him as a safety blanket. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't as of right now. Who's your wide receiving core there, right? So I mean, I'm not far fetched for saying that an improvement at quarterback, which isn't hard from Geno Smith, an improvement from quarterback, Brock Bowers is going to surpass Trey McBride. And we might have a downgrade at quarterback in Arizona. So the correlation kind of makes sense in my book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now who's that guy you're not going to have?
Hold on. To piggyback on that comment, McBride, granted, had 126 catches, 1,200 yards last year, but it took one of probably the most pass dominant offense in the NFL to acquire that. All right. So I understand that McBride did numbers last year. He's going to do numbers this year. I want to focus in on one stat, guys, and it's a stat I said is not very sticky. However, Trey McBride in 2022, 1 touchdown receiving. 2023, 3 touchdowns receiving. 2024, 2 touchdowns receiving. 2025, 11 touchdowns receiving. To borrow a phrase from one of my favorite shows growing up, Sesame Street, one of these things is not like the other. And if you want to say that McBride is going to come closer to the 11 touchdowns in 2025, you are betting against 3 other years of history and sample size that would say that it's going to be closer to the 3, 2, or 1 seasons he had. McBride still could be very good this year, but quite frankly, 126 catches and 1,200 yards with 3 touchdowns rather than 11 touchdowns, significantly different when you're talking about the elite tight ends in the NFL. Okay, there you go. That's my soliloquy on McBride.
It was a good one too, Bo.
Thank you.
I mean, I think it was great. I think that there's, when you use common sense in fantasy football, sometimes you actually get ahead. So, I mean, and I'm drafting with you and with everybody in Kentucky over the weekend. There was a lot of common sense in the room. It was a great time. Okay, Ferrell almost danced some salsa. We were ready to go at the halftime show. We were ready to go.
I could feel it. Hey, you know, Steve, and everyone was thrilled to have you here and looks forward to you coming back. There is, and Mr. Greer drops in. for a commentary from earlier in the show about Jack Becht. And I think, we talked about identifying the Raiders besides Bowers, because Bowers is going to get a big, big part of it. And you're right, Stephen G. Tom Smith asked a question, Balky, and I'm not going to answer it. I know the answer to it. And but I would like to hear in his eloquent way of putting things, what's the answer to that question from Tom Smith, Steve? Because I asked you, and you gave one of the most beautiful and kindest answers of a guy who is the voice and face and the CEO of the Fantasy Sopranos.
So the young guys that went last year, Mike Carbone, Mike Reddy, they had a phenomenal time. Okay? They really had a good time. They kind of, the KFFFC, they put their stamp on it. They performed extremely well. Believe me, they did very well in the KFF, and I had nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. Okay? I didn't do their waivers. I gave them some suggestions, but they took it on their own. The KFFFC is a league that, for guys like that, especially, and I'm not including myself, you can become a better drafter, okay, by drafting against there's a lot of good guys that don't get the exposure that everybody else does. So if I was everybody out there, I'd draft a few drafts in the KFFFC. I'm obviously the summertime, I'm going to take July off. Okay, I promised my wife that I'm going to go take 1 month off of everything. Okay, so July I'm not going to be drafting. I actually partnered up with David Hubbard. Me and him are going to probably do every draft together. Okay, and you know how I feel about him. I think he's the GOAT. So he's just a different caliber type player. There's one other person that's going to be involved. We'll talk about that at a different time. But we have a team that's pretty strong. The young kids are going to do a lot of the Kentucky and a lot of the baby gorillas and stuff. But I'm going to take July off. I told my wife, you have me the entire month of July. When we step back here on August 1st, do not bother me, because I will be drafting from August 1st to Vegas, 3-4 drafts a day, especially the holiday weekend. What's that? What's the one? It's Memorial Day, right? Labor Day weekend, I'm going to sleep down in this office. I will be doing drafts that you have not. I will be sleeping here. I'll feed the dogs. I'll walk them. I'll come back down. That's it. My daughter I'll see once a day, okay? And the month of August, past Labor Day, I will be drafting fiercely in the KFFFC, the FFPC, which is my number one, FFPC. I'm an FFPC guy, all right? We'll be drafting all over the place. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in Vegas that I see every year, and I made some new friends in Kentucky that I'm happy to see in Vegas. So I met a really couple of nice guys. I'm happy to see you guys. And Balky, I appreciate you having me on the show. I appreciate, over the weekend, a great drafting against you. I learned a couple of things, and it was a great time, guys, and I appreciate you guys.
Steve, we can't thank you enough for doing the show tonight. Thank you for coming on short notice. We appreciate it. A pleasure to draft with you in Kentucky. Look forward to doing it again next February, and I'll see you in the draft rooms this summer in the FFPC and, quite frankly, the KFFSC as well.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, guys. Have a good night.
Take care. That is the CEO, as Ferrell calls him, of the Fantasy Sopranos at Fantasy Sopranos on X, Steve Georgalos, the champion of the 2025 FFPC High Society title, won $50,000 for that, won a lot of money in the FFPC Playoff Challenge, a top 5 finish, I believe, in that. It was either top 5 or top 10, right up there. You can check the FFPC email I sent out today. That would have it in there. And of course, all the money that he made with Big Gorilla and Main Event championships last year. He's a real one, as Theo Greminger always likes to say. We're just always blessed to be able to chop it up with him, Ferrell. Good stuff from Steve G tonight.
It is. It's just, he's the same guy all the time, and I just love that enthusiasm and energy. As he was most eloquently said to me, he said, Reddy and Carbone, they made their bones in Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And I loved that so much. And, they had 2 of our big payback championships. They won a couple of divisions in the main event. And, they flirted with the top 10. It was a great year for those guys.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I always say to sort of put a bow on not only August drafting in the KFFSC, but Super Bowl weekend. As you know, my son has been in a lot of basketball tournaments that weekend, and it was always difficult for me to get away. But he kind of understood the situation this year with Team Wisconsin going to be skunked if I did not show up because of prior stuff that everybody else had going on. So I said, listen, man, I really want to watch you play, but it's important for me to get away this year. And he said, Dad, you've been to all my other tournaments. I understand. That's fine. And he was cool with it this year. And I asked him about next year. He said, yeah, it's all good.
Who's his favorite basketballer, Balky?
He loves LaMelo Ball is his favorite. And the fact that he lives in the state of Wisconsin and it's not Giannis Antetokounmpo, still having trouble coming to grips with that. Oh, yeah, he loves LaMelo Ball. So to sum it up, I will say we love drafting, right? We love getting together with all these people that we play online for the better part of the year, but there are a few weekends of the year, Las Vegas, and then obviously Northern Kentucky, Louisville, and then
Labor Day for Steve.
And then Caesars, obviously at the Super. Like, if you like drafting live, take advantage of another opportunity to do it, especially earlier in the season. I wish I had been doing more drafts early like this over the past few years. It really opens your mind up to a lot of new ideas, concepts, and quite frankly, player evaluations that you didn't consider. I definitely raised a few eyebrows when some of the sharper players there were taking certain players. We talked about Kyler Murray earlier. I thought it was interesting to see who he went to and how often he got drafted in this past weekend. Pearsall was another guy that I took notice of certain players drafting him. And so I don't know, man. I think it's a double-edged sword. It makes you a better player, and it is so much fun. So anytime, and I'll tell all the viewers tonight, all the listeners, anytime you have the opportunity to draft live against these players, take advantage, because there's precious time of the year where we get a chance to do this.
I agree, my friend.
KFFSC.com is where to go if you want to take advantage of another high-stakes draft that is coming up. 3 spots remain in the Super Sunday Sweet 16. The field of 96 is nearly complete. We have 1 draft left with 3 openings. It drafts this coming Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Steve G is in that. I am in that draft.
I'd be honored to get the meatball in there.
Oh, the meatball should get in that.
And Jerry Greer, maybe. And Tom Smith, even.
Tom Smith's not in that one? That actually surprised
I don't know. It's odd that he isn't.
So check that out. I'm looking at the list right now just to see if there's any other names I recognize in that draft.
I think C. Harris is in it.
You know who's in it?
The champ.
The FFPC reigning main event $1 million winner, Rob Sorrow, is in this draft. So you can draft against him. You mentioned Dodd Harris. He is in that one. Our good buddy Biplab Mandel, Jeff Jack Keane is in it. Lee Oldenburg, former guest of this show, is going to be in it as well. And then, of course, the guy who was on this show last week, Tommy Herron, the early Rampage champ in the Big Gorilla last year. He's in it as well. 3 spots left. Take advantage now. KFFSC.com. Going to be a lot of fun. Ferrell, we will go back to Friday, at least temporarily, next week. We'll see what happens if the HSFF hour gets a new night. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but I can tell you for sure we will be live next Friday with another guy who drafted this past weekend at the Super Sunday Extravaganza with the KFFSC, Bob Hogan, a FFPC Big Gorilla League champ. I think he cashed in the playoff challenge this year as well. He will join us at 10 p.m. this coming Friday. Ferrell Elliott, thank you so much. Great seeing you this past weekend. Thanks for putting on a great show, and we will talk with you again next week. I'd say enjoy the games, but we have no games now until September, so enjoy your weekend.
Don't be discouraged, Bulky. The UFL is coming.
That's right. UFL is coming. Can't wait for that. And I will be ready to enjoy some real-life professional football coming up here shortly. Be good, dude. Talk with you on Friday.
See ya.
That is Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, KFFSC.com, KFFSC.com. I want to thank Steve Georgalos, Ferrell Elliott, the FFPC, Rob Bryce, and of course, each and every one of you for hanging out with us. As I said, next Friday, we'll be back with Bob Hogan, the FFPC Big Gorilla League champ, 10 p.m. Eastern time next Friday. In case you missed last week's Insider Access show on the Better Sports Network, we had on Sports Gambling Podcast Sean Green. That was a good episode. Tomorrow, we go live again with my good buddy from the Huddle, Doug Orth, 7 p.m. Eastern time on the Better Sports Network socials, the FFPC socials, as well as betternetwork.com. That's going to be a lot of fun. FFPC Dynasty and Empire Orphans are open now. Pick them up now. $77 to $5,000 are the normal entry fees. Some of these are priced as low as $1. Some might even be negative. Yeah, that's right. We're going to pay you, and you get to take over these teams. There's not a ton of them out there, but there are a few. Go to myffpc.com/dynasty for sale, or just myffpc.com. Click on the Dynasty Orphans link on the drop-down. FFPC Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament and Best Ball Tournament going on right now. $35 and $125 entry, respectively. There you can win $10,000 and $40,000 grand prizes. Remember, those tournaments will close at the start of the NFL draft at myffpc.com. The Big Gorilla, as Steve just drafted and won tonight. Check it out. $350 entry, $1 million grand prize, 7 bananas, and early Rampage tournament open now. Tommy Heron was on the show last week. He won the Rampage tournament last year for a $25,000 grand prize. You could be that winner this coming year when you draft now. The FFPC Baby Gorilla for the first time, $125 entry fee, $100,000 grand prize. If you're looking to start playing some higher stakes with the FFPC, perfect entry there. Only going to cost you $125, and you can win a 6-figure grand prize. MyFFPC.com is where to go for all those teams. Don't forget that to like this channel, subscribe to the channel, like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on this video, share with your friends, share with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which will be tomorrow night at 7 p.m. That's Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern time for 2 hours, myself and Doug Orth on FFPC Insider Access. And then, of course, next Friday, we will be live once again with Bob Hogan from the FFPC KFFSC. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Normally, I like to end on a fantasy note. I'm going to skip it tonight and just let you guys know this. I turned 45 years old last year, and that's the time you're supposed to get a colonoscopy. And without giving you too much TMI, the results of that colonoscopy were there were some polyps found or whatever, and my surgeon said that if I'd waited till I was 50 as opposed to 45, he was sure that they would have been cancerous. And I had to get another colonoscopy scheduled in January. Well, I hadn't done it yet because I was busy with other stuff. You know, life gets in the way. And then I see the news today that James Vanderbeek, former star of Varsity Blues, great football movie that I think many of you have watched, and Dawson's Creek, one of the primetime soap operas that really defined the WB network, he passed away at the age of 48 due to colorectal cancer. He also got a colonoscopy and they found some cancerous stuff. This would have been about a year and a half ago. And he fought it, and passed away. But which is very sad, and rest in peace to him, and prayers and thoughts to his family, obviously. But that reminded me that I can't wait anymore. Got my second colonoscopy scheduled when I saw that news today. And got it scheduled. So that will be happening 2 weeks from today, which is good to get everything all set. So my point is this: whether it's a colonoscopy or anything else you've been putting off medically, you only have one body, you only have one life. Take care of yourselves. Whatever you've been putting off, let this be the message and the reminder to you to get it done. Not tomorrow, not the day after tomorrow, not after breakfast. Do it right now and get it taken care of so you can continue playing fantasy football and doing everything else you like on this planet. Be well, everybody. We'll talk with you again next Friday.